The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
This is Gerard with episode number 26 of Florida's Fresh Mix on the Florida Podcast Network, a random mix of Florida's freshest personalities. You're going to want to listen into this one.
Hey there, this is Amber, the lead content producer for the Florida Podcast Network, and welcome back to Florida's Fresh Mix Podcast. Hashtag Fresh Mix Friday. We love to see it. And as usual, I'm here with your host, Gerard. What's good, Gerard?
What's up? Or should I say, wow. Today, listen, I'm going to take over, Amber. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to bogart your intro because you have not seen The Tiger King. I have seen The Tiger King, although I haven't seen season 2 yet. And our guest today is from Big Cat Rescue. What is Big Cat Rescue, you say? It is the Big Cat Rescue from the popular, I think it used to be the #1 show on Netflix, Tiger King. And no, our guest is not Ms. Carole Baskin, but our guest knows Carole very well, to such an extent she calls her a close friend. And I believe it, and I'm very excited about this interview. So whether or not you've seen Tiger King, you will enjoy listening to all the things that you could, if you love animals, if you love cats, if you love the preservation of life, if you want to hear the dramatic ways that we can, that these cats have been mistreated and we can help them, listen in. And if you've seen Tiger King, even better. So, Deb Quimby is a social media assistant for Big Cat Rescue. So she does all the Facebook and the Instagrams and the YouTubes and all that stuff. She worked as a nurse for 40 years, becoming a nurse educator. And it's interesting the way that, her background story for how she found this sanctuary and became friends with Carole. This episode is mostly about big cats. What are they? What are the injustices that are happening to them? How are they being exploited? And why do we insist on having these animals in captivity? And sometimes at some point, due to human involvement, they have to remain in captivity. I never understood the breadth of all the complicated issues. And there are some sad moments in here, folks. Mm-hmm. but I hope that this is a very educational interview that inspires people to, get involved. So does that intrigue you, Amber? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I felt very educated after listening to this interview. And no, I have not seen Tiger King, so I don't know the drama and whatnot behind all of it. I know. I need to jump on the bandwagon.
This is a bandwagon to jump on. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. You heard it here first.
I know. I've heard that it's a pretty captivating show. It's a great conversation, people. So you're definitely gonna enjoy it.
Now, for those of you who have actually seen the show, The Tiger King, we will include a special treat for you. There will be an Easter egg in the show notes with a clip from producer Jaime's episode where she interviewed somebody at Big Cat Rescue. And this is before Tiger King ever came out. My sister did not know anything about Carole Baskin at the time, but what the person that she interviewed told her was extremely ominous given what we found out later. And if you're a fan of the show, that's all I'm giving you. So check the show notes, check out the clip. It's creepy, but you will enjoy it. So I'm just going to let that marinate. I also want to express my joy over something else that I'm very proud of, which is to be one of the hosts on the Florida Podcast Network. And I can, as a host, say, shout out to Texploration. These hosts, Greg and David, are doing an amazing job with their podcast, which is 4 episodes deep at this point. And they blessed me with being guests on my own podcast on the Fresh Mix, episode number 17. I'm wishing these guys all the best, and I can't wait to hang out with them in person as soon as possible. They're very nerdy like me, but I do love their entrepreneurial spirit and the fact that they have completely different personalities And so I can't wait to see how their podcast continues and evolves over time. And I can't wait to hang out with them.
Yes, we love Techsploration. You should definitely go check that out on the Florida Podcast Network.com. Like Gerard said, there are already 4 episodes out. And you should definitely go check out episode number 17 of the Fresh Mix, because that's just like a nerd fest, okay? Like, let's just be honest. That's exactly what that was. Yeah, it's pretty bad, yeah. But so fun.
Yeah. Well, not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good.
Yes. Anyways, let's jump right into Gerard's enlightening conversation with Deb Quimby of the Big Cat Rescue.
Wow. Hello, today I have the honor and the pleasure, the exquisite pleasure, to interview Deb Quimby of Big Cat Rescue. How are you today, Deb?
I'm fine, thank you.
Now, let's just get this over with, guys, because I think there are 1 or 2 of you out there. Your ears are perking up. You're hearing Big Cat Rescue. Where do I know that from? Where do I know that from? So we all know that it's from Tiger King. I have seen the show, only season 1, not season 2. It's my understanding that you haven't seen the show, which has been somewhat purposeful, and we'll get into the reasons for that just, briefly. But for me, I thought it was a great show, but I honestly don't remember. I remember kind of the big takeaways, but I don't even remember why the beef between the two started. I have no idea. So I would probably have to go back. But this is not the purpose of this podcast. The purpose of this podcast, the through line of all these episodes, is that we're talking about fresh personalities in Florida that are doing big things and have interesting stories. And that is why we're here. And so I just wanted to get the elephant out of the room. Okay. So I want to know what your origin story is, because I know that you started there as a volunteer in 2017, but you were a nurse before that for 40 years. So tell me about your practice as a nurse, and did that all take place in Indiana?
Yes. So I've been a nurse for 40 years. I retired in August of 2020. I've done mostly pediatric nursing, and most recently had been a nurse educator at a community college in Indiana. And when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, we went virtual almost overnight. And for someone that had been in nursing and is older, I didn't make that transition real well. And in my world of 40 years of nursing, nurses are taught at the bedside, not virtually.
Right.
I thought that was very difficult for me to make that transition trying to teach virtually. So I finished out that semester, which is the spring semester, and then in the fall decided there was just no way that I could go back to that. And I had been volunteering for Big Cat Rescue since 2017, and actually found the sanctuary on a Facebook Live in 2016 when there was a tiger rescued from Peru. And the live feed was actually from the Miami airport, where he was being unloaded off of a cargo plane of Mother's Day flowers. And it caught my attention. And I'd never heard of Big Cat Rescue before, being from Indiana, and had no idea about the issues that captive cats deal with. And it really intrigued me. And as a lifelong learner, I just started really looking into that and looking up Big Cat Rescue and all of the pieces and parts that go with, captive cats and cub petting and circuses and all of that sort of thing. And just became really interested in it and started following Big Cat Rescue on Facebook.
So how did you come across this video? Was it completely random?
Yes, it was completely random. It was just, how you'll just sit and scroll through Facebook. It just showed up in my feed, although I don't think anything happens by chance. I think it came across my feed on purpose, but I had never heard of them before. And then ironically now, here in 2022, I help manage Facebook and our social media. So it's kind of come full circle for me in a few years. So I volunteered starting in 2017 and then became an employee in August of 2020.
It's so funny how things happen, because, I would say that had it not been for the pandemic, you and I probably wouldn't be speaking right now, because you probably would still be doing what you were doing before. Is that safe to say?
Yes, that's safe to say. I was close to retirement, but really had not intended to retire when I did. The pandemic kind of pushed me in that direction.
So before you saw this video, were you a cat lover, a big cat lover? Were you just an animal lover in general? What was your status at that point?
At that point, I had a little long-haired dachshund that I had rescued from a puppy mill and two cats. So just kind of an animal lover in general, really, and had never really given a second thought to big cats. Being in Indiana, there were just, I don't know if I lived under a rock. I just had no idea that all of, people had big cats in backyards. Who knew? So that was just all new to me. And I've come a long way in learning about big cats in captivity and, all the issues that go with that since then.
I'm curious because you've been there about 5 years between being a volunteer and part of the staff. How's your level of expertise about these big cats grown over this short period of time?
I am not a keeper. I strictly work online. I help with our social media, and I can drive through the sanctuary and see the cats, but I don't go behind the public barricade. I don't do anything like that because I am not trained in that area of caring for the cats. But I can tell you a lot of things about them simply because of all that I've learned over time.
Can you pet them?
No, absolutely not. Big Cat Rescue is an accredited sanctuary. There is no touching of the cats at all unless they are sedated for a medical procedure. And a lot of people, interestingly, will contact me through our Facebook Messenger or through a comment on YouTube or in a Facebook post and say, I want to pet a tiger. While I understand that people think they're beautiful and majestic, and I completely agree with that, there are a lot of reasons why petting a tiger or any big cat is a bad thing. So, however, my little one that's right here beside me that's making himself known as can be pet all I want. But
that's right.
As far as big cats go, the issue with why there's so many in captivity is that they are used by those who choose to exploit them for cub petting. And this is one thing I think that if Tiger King did anybody a favor, it was the one scene, and I have not seen Tiger King, but there was a scene, I understand, that shows where a cub is being pulled from its mother with a metal hook away just after it was born. And the reason that they do that is so that they can use those cubs for cub petting. They make a lot of money off of them, and they can only use them for a very short window of time. And so they pull those cubs away from their mom, they bottle raise them, and to get them used to humans, and then they allow the public to pet them. That does several things. One, they are raised by their mother, so they don't understand, they don't learn how to hunt. They don't learn how to live in the wild. They aren't able to have their mother's milk. They don't have the bond. Right. Bond either, right. And they're not fed their mother's milk. They're fed like kitten replacer or something like that, and so then they grow up to have, bone issues and a lot of other health issues. So after that window of time is over, what happens is they're no use then to those who exploit them, because now they're not making money for them, but they're costing them money because they still have to be fed, housed. So they will many times give them away, or roadside zoos will take them, or people will take them for private possession and think it's going to be really fun to have this tiger in their backyard or in their basement or somewhere. And what they find out then is when that tiger becomes sexually mature at about 5 years of age, it can kill you. And then it's like, now what am I going to do with it? And so many times then they're just simply discarded or, put on the black market for their fur or their teeth or their bones or things like that. So the ones that are at Big Cat Rescue have been rescued from private possession, confiscated by law enforcement. They come from circuses. They've been used in performing acts. They've been used for speed breeding cubs, many things like that. So they can never go free once they're born in captivity. One, they don't know how to hunt and take care of themselves in the wild because they were taken from their mother, but also it's not legal to release them back to the wild. Pause right there. I mean, this is so interesting. So when you say they're confiscated by law enforcement,
that implies to me that someone's breaking the law. I mean, what are the circumstances under which they're being confiscated? What laws are being broken? Help give the background of that.
There are some states that have laws that say that you cannot have big cats in private possession. It's just a patchwork of laws throughout the United States. There's not one law overseeing that at the federal level, but there is something being worked on in that realm. And also, if they are found to be neglected or abused, some are abandoned. In 2021, there was 2 or maybe 3 tigers that got loose from their from their backyards that people were holding them in, and were then sent to sanctuaries. So they can be confiscated for a number of reasons. Maybe it's some kind of a breeding situation, and that state doesn't allow, for catteries of breeding hybrids, domestic and wild cats. There's a lot of reasons. There's several at the sanctuary that have been confiscated by law enforcement for neglect or different reasons that they feel like they need to go in and take these. It's not a safe situation sort of thing.
I hate to ask the question, but is the reason sometimes abuse?
Yes, it is. And there's one tiger in particular at the sanctuary right now. Her name is Aria. And she was neglected to the point of abuse. And when she was rescued or taken by Ohio law enforcement, she was near death. And in fact, when they took her to their holding facility, they thought probably the best thing to do was euthanize her. But Big Cat Rescue has 2 hospitals on site, and Ohio knew that if anybody could save her, it would be us. And so they contacted us, and we did take her. And she had multiple surgeries. She lived on concrete her entire life. She was owned by an individual, had never received the proper medical care that she needed. She had like what we would consider on a human to be like a bed sore, an open wound on her hips and shoulders, where she had laid on concrete in her own urine and feces for so long.
Oh my God.
And she was just in horrible, horrible situation when she arrived, had multiple surgeries, and she's now doing really well. But
that's great.
It was very much a neglectful, abusive situation where she, did not receive the medical care that she needed, and so was taken by law enforcement there in Ohio. Ohio has taken others as well because they do have some laws there.
Right.
Since the Zanesville massacre that happened years ago, where so many cats and other animals were let go, and law enforcement had to come in and kill them because they were out in the public and, they could injure someone. So they have put some laws in place. And so they have confiscated a number of cats over the years that have ended up at Big Cat Rescue.
What's your best guess as to how law enforcement becomes aware of the neglect or violations of the law and whatnot? What's your best guess on that?
I think many times people speak out. People just in the public speak out and say, hey, I know my neighbor has a cat in the backyard. Mm-hmm. It doesn't belong there. It's a public safety issue. We do encourage people to speak out if they know of, abuse or neglect or cats being held in an apartment or, places they don't belong, which is, not in captivity, but we all know that they're there. But the federal law will hopefully make a difference for those cats. But I think most of the time it's either that the cat escapes, and so everybody knows that this cat's out there, including law enforcement, like happened in Texas, last year, or just that the public speaks out and says, hey, I know the situation that's happening. It might be a family member. We've had family members who have had cats in private possession who have become ill. And so the other family members didn't want that responsibility and contacted Big Cat Rescue and said, hey, will you take this cat? Because, my father or whoever had it and I don't want it and they can't take care of it any longer. And so, they are sometimes rescued that way as well.
Right. I mean, I assume that there are probably a variety of reasons. Some people that wanted the cat, and like you said before, they find themselves in over their heads, and some is probably whistleblowers talking about neglect. Some of it is probably just fear because if you're a neighbor and they don't want the cat to escape or whatnot. So there are probably a variety of reasons, but as long as they end up in the right hands, I guess the origins for how, they get brought to the authorities' attention is not as relevant as the care that they get afterwards. And I want to talk more about that. But how annoying is it? You walked into this thing, in 2017, not being able to predict what was about to come down the pike, right? And so what percentage of the questions do you get have to deal with big cats and what percentage have to deal with the other stuff? And the reason I'm asking that is because I wonder if there's a purposeful intent. When you go on the website for Big Cat Rescue, there are videos. Well, first of all, I looked under frequently asked questions. There was nothing about Tiger King, okay? And so then I went and tried to find anything related to the show. And you really have to dig deep. I mean, there are plenty of videos, but all those videos have to do with cats. And so, I'm wondering, is there kind of a mentality there that, like, you guys have a purpose, you have a focus. It's the cats. It's the cats, man, And so when people are asking all these questions that you're getting, are they focused on the cats for the most part or the show?
It kind of comes and goes. So in March of 2020, when Tiger King first came out, as you can imagine, the comments were not cat related. Yet we still try, and even to this day, and like I said, it kind of comes and goes. It depends on what show is out or what article has just come out or, what's been on the news. And so it kind of wanes. When Tiger King came out, some of the biggest questions that we still address to this day are, why don't you let them go free? Why are they in a cage? And how are you any different than a roadside zoo? And so we've created videos that address those issues and many others. The social media, or actually the staff that's on property that actually, works with the cats, particularly a couple of them that actually do a lot of the video work, both on our produced page, which is bigcattv.com, and then also dailybigcat.com, which is all of our live videos. We worked really hard to create videos that, I say we as in the sanctuary, not me personally, created videos that address these issues. So we try to link those videos as part of an answer to help people understand the differences in, us in a roadside zoo, or why big cats can't go free. I understand nobody wants to see a cat in a cage, and I think we all agree on that. But people don't realize that it's not legal. For one, they're not native to the United States. We can't let them go here. It would be a really horrible thing for both the animal and the people. And their native countries don't want them back, because what has happened is these cats that were born in captivity are all inbred. And they do that because it's easy to speed breed them that way. They don't care that the line stays pure. And so those native countries don't want them back because, one, they couldn't reintroduce them to the wild because they weren't raised by their mom and don't know how to survive there. They're too used to humans, and they would destroy the line of Bengal tigers or Siberians or whatever it is, because these cats that they would be releasing are inbred. That's kind of the purpose of the federal bill, is to stop all of this cub petting, this private possession, so that there are no more cats in cages to rescue, and they can live in the wild where they belong.
So and make it standardized across the U.S.
Yes.
What do you think the chances are? Is the bill getting support? Do you feel that? I mean, it sounds like something that, especially this day and age, that that should be something that should have bipartisan support, right? I mean, are you feeling confident? How's that process going, as far as you know? So
there are a good number of representatives in both the House and the Senate who have co-sponsored the bill. We push it every day in, when we were talking to people online, when they're live at the sanctuary, they talk about it. And Carole has been to DC a number of times to speak individually with these congressmen and senators about sponsoring. And December of 2021, it passed Congress, but it did not get the opportunity to get to the Senate before that session ended.
Okay.
And so in January of 2022, it had to start over. And there are a number of people, congressmen and senators who have signed on, so the hope is that it will pass yet this year. That's the goal, is that it will pass yet this year. Are
you feeling pretty good about it?
Yeah, I think that there's enough people out there who make what we call the call of the wild. It's simply, you go to bigcatact.com, you plug in your name and address, and it looks up who your representatives are, and then it actually calls you back. It's an automated thing. It calls you back, and then it dials your congressmen and your senators, and you can simply leave a message. You can also email. You can send them a tweet asking them to support it. And between all of that and Carole being up there lobbying several different times, I think there's probably no one up there in DC that doesn't know about it. It's just getting them to sign on.
I mean, this seems like a no-brainer to me, looking at it from 10,000 feet. What are the counter arguments?
There have been in the past some lobbyists who have been on the other side who don't want to be told how to deal with it in their state. There are still a handful of those in the business of breeding and using big cats for cub petting, and they're very lucrative businesses, and they don't want to be told that there can be no more cub petting. So they have, their own lobbyists who they're trying to get to lobby against it, and they've told some inaccurate information to congressmen as well, and senators, that it's not accurate information. And so again, that's, we're having to overcome that and work really hard to be sure that they do know that the only two things that federal bill will do is stop cub petting, so that you cannot touch or pet a cub. And if we stop that, there'll be no reason for breeding, because they're not going to be able to use those cubs for a photo op or for, cub handling and getting their however much, $20 or whatever to pet that cub.
Right. I mean, as soon as you said lobbyist, I'm like, oh, it's all about money. And then every reason that you gave that the lobbyists are trying to push forward, all at the end of the day, they all go back to money. And I didn't hear anything about what's best for the cats.
Right.
Which is a shame. And I didn't realize that Carole was so involved that she was actually, going DC and, personally, I don't want to use the word lobbying negatively, but let's say personally advocating for the bill and what's best for the cats. Let's pretend this show doesn't exist. We came here to talk about cats and what's best for big cat rescue and what's best for cats, right? What is she like as a person? Describe her passion to me, and what's it like working with her? What's your relationship with her? Just tell me about her as a person.
When I found the sanctuary in April of 2016 by watching the live of Hoover the tiger being rescued from Peru and him coming off the plane in Miami, I started following them on Facebook. And at that point, Carole was doing daily walkabouts in the evening and showing the cats to everyone. She was using her cell phone on a stabilizer, would walk around the sanctuary and talk about the cats. I started following that and listening. And because I love to learn, if I was still at work or I was, busy with something else, I would always go back and replay that, sometimes more than once, because I wanted to be sure that I heard what she was saying, that I understood it. And she was just a very interesting person to me. And I had decided that I wanted to meet her. She was someone that I wanted to get to know and know more about her. And so then when I went down in 2017 in November, I took what was called a founder's tour at the time. And it was just her and I riding around on her golf cart, seeing the cats. And we just kind of made an instant connection. And we have been friends since. As a person, she is completely passionate and committed to her mission of stopping cub petting and private possession and getting this bill passed. Her big goal is to see these cats living in the wild and trying to save the planet by, saving the tiger. She's the kindest person you could ever meet. She's very kind. She is an extremely hard worker. She works hours and hours every single day. She started rescuing cats and bobcats and releasing them back to the wild when she was 17. So that would have been back in the 70s.
Wow. Okay.
And now her daughter, Jaime, who is president of Big Cat Rescue, is over the Bobcat Rehab Program and does native Florida Bobcat rehab and release. And Jaime has that same passion for saving big cats in the wild and seeing these bobcats go back to the wild. But Carole's then in 1992 was in real estate and was at an animal auction buying llamas to be able to clear grass on a large tract of land. And a guy walked in with a bobcat, and about a 6-month-old bobcat that had been declawed, had been hand raised, and was selling it.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy next to her started bidding on it, and she, having rehabbed and released bobcats, she knew that they were really, vicious little animals. And she said to the guy, she said, this bobcat's just going to rip your face off. And he said, I'm a taxidermist and I'm just going to club it in the head in the parking lot.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow.
And,
just said it like
that. She started crying, and they bid on that bobcat and brought it home. Well, it couldn't be released because it had been declawed, it had been hand raised. And so then they started looking for another bobcat, a captive born bobcat that they could raise it with so that it didn't terrorize Jaime, because she was little at the time, their German Shepherd. So they ended up in Minnesota at what ended up being a fur farm. They didn't realize it at the time. Of course, this was back in the 80s before the internet, you realize. So, it's not like you could look this place up kind of thing, like we could now. And so they went to Minnesota to get this bobcat, found that it was a fur farm. The guy said that, the ones they didn't sell as pets, they were going to just slaughter and use for their fur.
Wait, I was going to regret asking, explain what a fur farm is, but I get it. Okay. That's horrific.
And so they brought home all 56 bobcats with them. And that's kind of how the sanctuary got started.
It sounds like the origin story for Big Cat Rescue it was very organic. And I don't think this really comes across in the show, but, it's a 501c3. It's a nonprofit organization. It's a charity. So I just wanted to point that out to people that might not know that. So go ahead.
So they brought all those bobcats home. They couldn't be released because they'd been raised in captivity, and started rapidly trying to build cages for these cats. And people started calling her saying, will you take my lion? Will you take my tiger? And she's like, what in the world are people doing with these lions and tigers in their backyard? So initially she thought she could rescue her way out of this problem that existed, that she didn't even realize existed at the time. But then come to find out there was no rescuing the way out of it, because these people just were continuing to breed these big cats for cub petting and other things like that. So through the years, she realized that the only way to really put an end to this was by changing the laws. And that's how that all came about, with trying to change laws to save these big cats. So the overall arching goal is to save these cats in the wild. And her vision of that is to use technology to be able to put, how we have like trail cams and nest cams, and, people can put those on their property and watch animals or whatever.
Right.
Well, we have a number of those cameras at the sanctuary. Part of them are Explore cameras. We have Nest cameras. We have Verkada cameras on cats, and you can watch those cats 24 hours a day. Her goal is then to put these 360 live streaming 3D cameras in the wild. And you could put your VR headset on. You could pay a small fee like you would pay for, a streaming channel. Mm-hmm. And you could put your headset on, and then you could choose where to go. So you could go to the Himalayas and watch the snow leopards, or, you could go to all these different places and watch these cats, in real time. So you can watch them raising their cubs or going after prey or whatever it would be. And then the money that you pay for, the small amount of money that you would pay for that streaming service would go to the people that live in those villages or those areas. And their responsibility then would be to, make sure those cameras are working, or that the prey base stays high and the forests aren't torn down, and that, they're not killing these cats for coming into their villages, that they're doing things that are keeping these cats in the wild and keeping a healthy ecosystem there. She actually has a whole webpage devoted to that, and it's bigcatrescue.org/earth.
This is already in process?
So her vision is, yes, very much so. Mm-hmm. And she's working with a number of organizations to be able to, hopefully bring this all to fruition. I mean, it's a long range goal, but that's really the hope of, what will happen down the road. There's a big cat game that you can get in VR headset. And she does a lot with virtual reality, with working toward that end to be able to make this happen. And what the other thing that she sees happening is that zoos remaking themselves to not necessarily, I mean, there are some animals that probably don't mind being in captivity, some of the littler type animals. Mm-hmm. But, big cats that would roam hundreds of miles that are kept in a cage. There's a lot of people now who really don't want to go to a zoo because they're saying, hey, these cats don't belong in a cage. If zoos would remake themselves, then they could they already have the structure there. They have the big areas where these cats are kept. And so you could go into that area, you could pay $5 to use a VR headset and see these cats actually in the wild. VR headsets are expensive. And so not everyone's going to be able to afford, to buy a $300 headset, but you could go to the zoo, pay $5 and, put a headset on and be able to see these cats in the wild.
Right.
All of that is her vision. And she's very much a visionary, someone that will try anything as far as new technology, just to see what works and what doesn't. So I very much respect her for the fact that, she is doing everything that she can and pulling people in to help her with that. As far as like the VR technology and, getting these live streaming cameras out there. And Big Cat Rescue gives about $100,000 every year to in situ projects around the world to help save these cats in the wild. A lot of them are small cat type projects because they seem to get overlooked many times. It's the big cats that tend to get a lot of the conservation money. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of that money every year goes to small cat projects to save them in the wild.
Can't forget the little guy.
Right. And, a lot of times it's that they need these cameras to be able to watch these cats in the wild, to observe their behaviors and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of moving parts to all of this, but, that the end goal is to ultimately save the big cat in the wild. And, how can we do that? And so that's kind of her goal. But as a person, she's wonderful. She's a very giving, kind person. She's a great friend to me, and we work well together. But her and Howard are both wonderful people. They're a lot of fun to be around. And I couldn't ask for anything better to do in retirement. I'm not retired, I guess. I'm retired from nursing, but I'm not retired.
Right, I was about to say, you seem like you're really busy and you're getting paid. So you're not, this is a new chapter, let's say.
Exactly. And, and I have really enjoyed all that I've been able to do to help the cats and the sanctuary and Carole to be able to do my little part to be helpful with all of that.
First of all, I'll just say my 2 cents about the VR project. First of all, I think all VR is amazing. I love to do it, although you have to be careful about where you're standing in your house when you do it. And make sure you put the furniture away. Okay, and don't move around too much.
Where the cats are.
Right. Exactly. No, but that sounds really cool. And, even though, her ultimate goal it sounds extremely worthwhile, very, very cool. It's like they say, every journey, needs a first step. So, even though that project is in its infancy, I'm sure that the people making it happen will be undeterred. And so it'll be interesting to see how that progresses over time. So let me ask you the overarching question. If you could wave a wand, or if Carole could wave a wand, what would happen immediately, instantaneously to help these cats?
I think there's still a lot of people out there that don't understand the issues. So they don't understand that why petting a cub is bad. Mm-hmm. I think there's still a lot of education that needs to be done. So I think if we could, wave a wand, just giving everybody that instant knowledge as to why it's bad to pet a cub.
And I think the education is important because, for me, I'm a complete cat lover. I know nothing about cats. I'm learning so much from what you're telling me. And I'll be honest. I mean, if someone were to offer me the opportunity to go and pet a tiger cub before this conversation, I would have jumped at the chance to do it. I mean, so you just gave me the knowledge to know the reasons behind why that's so deleterious to them and their growth, and it's probably irreversible. So, you were talking about if you could wave a wand, the education that you would like to, bestow on the general populace.
Right. And so on social media, many times we see celebrities that are petting cubs or swimming with a tiger or a lion or, touching them. And people will like and watch those reels or videos, and they'll make a comment about, oh, that's so cool. And I think if people realized that, I think many times these celebrities just want to feel very special, like, oh, look what I'm doing. And, I'm special. I can do this. And if people realized the detriment that was being caused to that animal by them showing off with it, I would hope that they would realize that that's just not a good thing to do. And so what we ask people to do is if you see celebrities or anyone on social media that is doing those things, call them out on it, explain to them why it's so bad. And I think most of us, and, you just said this yourself, I think many of us don't know that. And until somebody tells us why it's a bad thing and explains that, we don't know. And, there's been people that I have talked to on social media who say, when I was younger, I did pet a cub. I didn't know. And people get really emotional about it, saying, I can't believe what I did. And, my response is that, but now you know better. And now you can help teach others. So I think we just have to continue to work on educating not only the adults, but the kids. And I really enjoy doing the Zooms that I do with classrooms, because many times these kids have no idea about, the plight of the big cat and what's driving their extinction.
So then after you wave the wand and everybody is miraculously educated, would the next step be that in a perfect world, everybody would just leave them the heck alone and let them do their thing, and we would never see cats in captivity ever? Or is that too extreme?
In a perfect world, I think that would be what we would all hope. The ones that have been born in captivity will have to live out their lives in a cage. And so there are sanctuaries around the world that will take care of these cats until the day that they die. Once those cats that are in captivity die off, if we can get the federal bill passed, and if we can educate people to understand why we don't want these cats in captivity, if we can keep them in the wild where they belong, and we can raise those population numbers, not only is it good for the cats, but it's healthy for the earth as well, because you need to have, those levels of hierarchy and in the forests and wherever these cats are. My motto has always been each one reach one. And I feel like if, each of us can teach one other person about the plight of these big cats and understand why cub petting is so bad, I just feel like, someday we're going to get the word out to where, everyone is going to understand the issues, and we can see these cats living free and no longer in captivity.
Deb, you have completely converted me in one conversation. Actually, I think it was like the first 10 minutes you converted me. And when you talk about petting the baby cubs, you had me at that. Okay. So now this question is really specific to me. And I will admit it's a two-parter and it might seem very stupid, but I've never asked this. I've never even Googled the answer to this because I want to live in my fantasy world where these things exist. But now, since I've got you here, I'm 45 and I'm a grown-ass man. I'm just going to ask you, and maybe it's going to be like finding out there's no Santa Claus, but I'm going to ask you this question. Okay, now, I'm trying to get ready. I've had my heart broken. Is there any such thing as a Black Panther in real life?
No, there's not.
I have so many reasons that's breaking my heart, including Marvel movies. But Okay. So you care to expand on that?
Sure. So that is a huge misnomer. Big black cats are either black jaguars or black leopards. And black actually comes from a melanistic trait that they have that causes the black coloring in their fur. Mm-hmm. So you can actually have a black leopard and a golden leopard, like what we think of when we think of leopards, actually born in the same litter. Oh, it's just the black leopard actually has more melanin in their skin and their fur than the golden leopard does. So we actually do have a black leopard right now at Big Cat Rescue. His name is Jinx. He's actually one that was confiscated from Ohio by law enforcement. So if you go to bigcatrescue.org/Jinx, Jinx, you'll be able to read all about him.
Okay, well, I'm going to check out Jinx, definitely. And I'm going to try to virtually pet him or whatever. But so it's not a total loss. So at least I know that, okay, there might not be black panthers, but black big cats do exist. So, whew, yes. All right. So that's, yes. I'm not as devastated as I was expecting to be. Now, this last question I have for you, this last personal question, I'm getting ready for the answer, but I'm just reaching out there. I mean, when I was a kid, I'm about to date myself, but when I was a kid, He-Man came out and I was playing with He-Man, and it's He-Man versus Skeletor, and Skeletor he rode on the back of a purple panther named Panther. Okay. Now, so my question is there any such thing as a purple panther?
No, sorry.
Okay. All right. Are there any purple big cats at all?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Right. Well, I figured that's probably fantasy. So just tell me really quickly, what do you love the most about cats?
Well, they're beautiful for one, very majestic.
That's the word I use the most, majestic, yes.
Yeah, they really are. Also, their personalities. So, I would have never known this prior to 2016. I could have never told you this, but all of them have very different personalities. There are some who have been raised around people and are very chatty and are very social. And then there are others who have been raised by humans and because they were beaten, want nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. And then there's everything in between. So whether it's a bobcat or a serval or a tiger or, whatever, they all have very different personalities. And I really enjoy seeing that in them, those different personalities. And, then there's, of course, those that you kind of connect with. Right. And not by touching. I don't mean that. I mean, just by being around them and, watching them and talking to them and, seeing them in their just behaviors.
Well, I think that's a very positive note to end on because, there's this common misconception that has always irritated me that cats are standoffish and don't have personality. And I always tell people that they don't know what they're talking about. I love cats and I think they've got tons of personality. So thanks for verifying what I've been saying all along. So listen, this is very important. Do you have any events or anything coming up that you want us to promote while you're here? And also I want to know, what other links on social media that we should check out. In particular, if you wouldn't mind repeating, because I want people to get out there and support this bill if they're so inclined. I know you mentioned the link before, but can you tell us about any events and that link and any other links on social media that we should pay attention to?
The most important thing that anyone can do if you live in the United States is to make the call of the wild. And you do that one of two ways. You can either text the word CATS, CATS, to 52886 on your phone, and it will call you back. Or you can go to bigcatact.com, and you plug in your information, and it will call you back with your representative's information to make the call of the wild. That's probably the most important thing. As far as events, Big Cat Rescue has been closed to the public since March 15th of 2020 because of COVID. Big cats can contract COVID and have, in some facilities, and some have died because of it. And so because of that, we have stayed closed to the public, but we do have live webcams that you can watch 24/7 at bigcatcams.com. And there are a number of cameras there that you can watch. We're on all social media as Big Cat Rescue. If you ever have any questions, all you have to do is reach out and someone will get back with you. whether it's myself or someone else on our social media team, we'll get back with you and answer your questions. BigCatRescue.org is our website, and it's over 10,000 pages. And so you can find just about anything you want to know about us on BigCatRescue.org.
Perfect. I didn't want to forget the main website. So that's so great. Deb, this has been so enlightening. And as a cat lover, I've loved, well, I was going to say I loved every minute of it. Some of it made me beyond sad. I learned some things that made me feel joyous and some that broke my heart, but very educational. So thank you so much for your time. And I really appreciate you. I look forward to following your journey. And I'm so happy that you found this new avenue in your life to do some good and make yourself happy in the process. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Wow. So whether you don't know anything about Tiger King or you're a huge fan who binge watched it like I did the first season, I hope that you found that extremely enlightening as I did. And one thing that came across clear as day is that Deb is a believer. She was, I found her so cool because we purposefully wanted to make this interview not about that show and more about the cats. She could have easily brought a spotlight on herself or attention to herself or made a name for herself by, focusing on the show and all the sensationalism involved, et cetera, et cetera. But she didn't, because it was very clear that she came here with a singular purpose: to talk about the plight of these cats and to educate us on why their treatment is so, for lack of a better term, horrific. That kind of humility on her part is something that I really enjoy to see, because she's here for a bigger purpose, and the interview had a larger goal. And for the record, she and I did not speak before the interview about, she did not tell me, hey, stay off of Tiger King or whatever. We didn't speak at all ahead of the interview. I decided that I wanted to focus on what the through line of this podcast is: people with a strong Florida connection, doing big things, doing important things. And that show, despite its popularity and all the sensationalism, et cetera, does not fit in with our mission here. Let people learn about Florida and what people are doing in Florida that are having major impact. And let's talk about the impact that humans are having on these cats, but also the hope that there is for, through mediums like this, we can spread knowledge about it and increase awareness so that these cats can be treated better, or, be left alone completely at some point. We talked about waving the magic wand. Just leave the cats alone. I also have to say, just from a character standpoint, the fact that, Deb hasn't seen the show purposefully because it involves her friend, Carole Baskin, and she doesn't want to witness kind of clips of that kind of are being put together to, from her perspective, to make a character out of her friend. You have to really respect that. This interview brought interpersonal reality to reality TV. Whatever you see on a reality TV show, there are real lives involved. Now, these days, a lot of it has to do with acting and, some kind of like, pre-prepared scripts and things like that. And that's why I kind of have moved away from reality TV. But I saw Tiger King as more of a documentary. But again, you can put clips together that can paint people any kind of way. And I'm not taking sides. I just believe that there are two sides to every story. And I thought it was important to have another side told, in addition to the reality facing these cats. I hope that we brought all that together in a nice compact package for you, and that you enjoyed it and it was thoughtful and that it made you guys think. And always remember, as an attorney, I know that all people are presumed innocent before proven guilty. All right? Keep that in mind. Oh, and the last thing I would leave you with is, I personally think that people give cats way too much shit, all right? I mean, people say that cats don't have personalities and dogs are super loyal and cats have attitudes and all that stuff. And I've been hearing that all my life. Let me tell you, that's the reason why I personally love cats. Cats do have personalities. You can form relationships with them. They're very kind. They're majestic. The way that they behave is a reaction to the way that we behave towards them. And just give cats a chance, man. All right. So do more research. Involve yourself in some, hang out with a cat virtually. All right. Put on those virtual goggles and just hang out with a big cat. All right. So that's my fresh take. And I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Take care, guys. For details and show notes about today's show and our guests, go to freshmixpodcast.com. I'd really love your feedback, both on today's guest and my fresh take. The Florida Podcast Network has a closed Facebook group exclusively for superfans of their shows like Florida's Fresh Mix. So we all look forward to hanging out in there with you. Just search for FPN Insiders on Facebook to leave us comments, get early scoops, contests, or other special treats. Or you can just complain about Florida, okay, so it's spring break right now. Every year, other than COVID, where I had 2 years of respite, okay? I don't know what it's like in the rest of Florida. I'm sure that it's like this in many other parts. But in Miami Beach, it's nuts. You get swarmed with spring breakers that are not in their right mind at all. And they're motivated by all the wrong things. We're talking the drugs. We're talking the sex. We're talking the party. We're talking being loud and as inebriated as possible. And yes, maybe I'm getting old. I just had my birthday the other day. But man, it's not a good look. But at the end of the day, I was one of those kids because I lived here. But keep in mind that spring break in Florida lasts from end of February all the way through April. But I guess it's a give and take because I live in paradise. So if I have to suffer for a month and a half every year, I guess that's just what I have to do. Plus, I can just stay inside. Anyway, be sure to visit all the great shows on the Florida Podcast Network. You can find them at floridapodcastnetwork.com. Keep catching Who's Fresh in the Florida Mix with Florida's Fresh Mix podcast.
Flintstone Media has been the digital messaging bedrock of several brands and businesses, serving as a highly resourceful podcast production house and consultancy firm for over 6 years. Visit flintstonemedia.com for podcast samples. From show development and setup through recording and distribution, work with a leader in the industry and add a new podcast to your brand's content offerings. That's flintstonemedia.com.